In this episode of Mighty Car Mods, we're going through all of the S30, Datsun 240, 260, 280 Nissan questions
Fair lady.
that you had for us. And we're going to show you some footage that you've never seen before, including the power run where we actually made more power, but we never showed you, and we're going to explain why. Welcome to another episode of Mighty Car Mods, and we have just, I was about to say we've just completed, but we haven't completed at all. We've completed the build component of our Nissan Fairlady S30, and now the car is actually running, it's making some awesome power, and so you guys had a bunch of questions, and we decided to answer them, didn't we, Martin?
That's right, the bulk of the build is done. There's a few little loose ends that have to be tied up. It's stuff that takes ages, it's particularly slow. It's kind of like a cricket match. Unless you're really into cricket, you don't really want to stand there all day and watch it.
Like, we needed a gear boot oil seal.
Yes.
And that we had to order that from overseas.
And then you got to hack it up.
And that's been like a couple of weeks. And so, you know,
and then a seatbelt, and then you put the seatbelt in, and then the seatbelt thing doesn't quite work, and then you look at the legislation, and then the lap sash thing is in the wrong spot, so you have to rebolt that with a particular kind of 7/16 UNF bolt, and then you have to get that bolt, take that bolt out, put it in,
it's madness,
etc. for weeks.
Yeah, you get the seatbelt specialist in to do all of his business. But anyway, you guys had lots of questions, so we're just going to dive right into them and answer them for you. And probably the thing that we get asked the most all the time, and it was no exception with this one, is what was the budget for this build? And how much did it cost?
Because cost is such a measurable thing, and people love things that are measurable, don't they?
Yeah. Now, I wish we could just give you a number. I wish I could say to you, it cost $32,000, but instead the story is going to be more grandiose than that. The figures that I can give you is I can tell you how much the car cost, and the car cost, it was yen, but when converted to Australian dollars, it was $40,000. That's how much the car was. Get it in here, you've got to pay your duties and taxes and all those kinds of things, and shipping and that kind of stuff.
Which is roughly, you know, like you got 10% GST, 5% import tax, $1,500 for a roll-on, roll-off ship. Then you got deregistration fees in Japan. I don't know, another $1,000. Maybe it's $5 grand.
Yeah,
maybe more.
Approximately.
Maybe I don't actually know exactly, because we still.
That's the most. I mean, I know some of the people watching out there are pretty baller because they, you know, they drive a Golf GTI with all the options that cost more than that. But that's like the most amount of money I've ever spent on a car.
We should rewind a little bit too and explain how even that managed to happen, because for years, I reckon probably close to 5 years, we've been talking about one day we've got to do a GTR. And I mean, you guys have been saying it too. Do a GTR, do a GTR. Yeah. This guy has a particular, like I bought him a model GTR for Christmas a few years ago.
It's blue, it's V-spec, it's the internet's GTR. It's pretty awesome.
And so we thought, you know what? And I think at that stage, maybe they were like 40 grand.
Yeah.
Oh man, we don't have 40 grand, but we'll keep saving, and in a couple of years we'll buy one. And guess what happened?
Yeah, what happened was they went crazy. So I've actually, I think I mentioned this recently, I've put in some bids on 34 GTR, and now, I mean, basically, I'm like lying in bed at night time waiting for the message to come through. Bing, bing. Oh no, sorry, it went for $120,000. Like more than double what your budget was. And so you went, how do you get a little bit of that flavor, but without having to spend like hundreds of thousands of dollars? And the S30 was the way to go. Yeah. Now, to try and answer your question in terms of how much did it cost, because you know, we saw so many questions of how much did the build cost. What I can say is each of the components on the car, you could go through, which I haven't done, and most people that are into cars don't do because it is frightening.
Too scary.
You could actually go through and just work it out. You can go, how much is an RB, how much are the wheels, how much is the brake kit, how much is the whatever, and you could work it all out. The thing that you can't really work out is the time of the people. Now, you guys obviously know Mechanical Stig and Turbo Yoda as like mechanics on the show, but outside of this, like we're just mates, like we ride motorbikes together, we hang out, so no one's really kind of got this thing of going, well, my day rate is this and my day rate is that, because we're all just working on it, we're having fun and going out to dinner afterwards and stuff. So it's hard to quantify it, its cost as a dollar figure, but what I can say is that most weeks you would have myself, Marty, Benny, and Al working 2 or 3 days a week, and then we'd be editing the other days of the week, and we were doing that for
over 10 weeks.
Yeah, over 10 weeks. Now, some weeks the guys wouldn't come down because they had other things on, but then Marty and I would be working on it. So if you work out that you're working 8 or 9 hours per person by 4 or 5 people a day. You're talking about hundreds of hours a week by it's thousands of hours.
And a related question as well was like, was there any extra bits and pieces that you needed? We pretty much showed everything that we use, which means if you were to Google the prices of all the rear end stuff, the engine, the gearboxes and all that, you get a very clear picture. And if you have the ability to piece all that together, you can build a car for the same price. And you could probably save a lot of money by buying a rolling shelf. Because we had intended to buy a car we could drive here, import, very simple, drive it around for a year and something, and then maybe we change an engine. But yeah, you could probably save a bit of money in that way. But again, the expert help and mates in that blurry line. I don't know. I couldn't probably put a price on it if I tried.
What I would say though is that when we had a look locally for those cars, they are kind of in there, you know, a bit modified and kind of nice. They're between $80,000 and $100,000 in Australia. The price of them has gone through the roof. Shannons, they do insurance for our cars, so they insure the Mini and Super Gramps, and they're awesome. So just rewinding a second, you know, you might have seen on our old episodes, we used to be sponsored by Just Car Insurance. Now, Just Car Insurance finished up. It was one brand out of a bigger company, which was Suncorp and Shannons and others. And so our insurance policies went to Shannons, and they supply insurance for us. They have insured this car for us, and it's insured for around $100,000. Now, that's not what we had to pay for it, obviously, because, you know, that's what went into it. But if you wanted to replace it, potentially with the JDM internet tax of those cars, and now that Mighty Mods have done a series on them, they're probably worth a bit more.
Apparently, probably worth $10 more. Like Gemini's, they're worth $10 more.
So there it is. Now, one of the other questions that we had was, what are the tools that you used most on the car? And we've got them for you. We've got, man, if this was a clickbait video, we'd go, the 5 tools that you should use on your car the most.
Always JDM 5000 USDM Max Cred.
Yes.
Doesn't that always have silly names?
I think so.
Yeah, good.
I think so. Anyway, so while building the S30, these are the tools that we use the most. Now, number one, you wouldn't think that this is a tool, but this is like our light. And a lot of you have asked about this. It's a Ryobi 18-volt light. Has the mad battery in the bottom, but some crazy design thing here where you can turn that over and run it on mains as well. We've used that for years.
And the reason we use them all the time is because another question we got was, what's the belly lift thing? It's called a quick jack. And you end up on your back under them and there's no light under there. So these are awesome because you just put them on the ground, but they've got like a hanging hook thing too for hanging in engine bays. Very handy. Seeing what you're doing is kind of important.
Next up, the DAC. So this here is basically an impact wrench, and it DACs things.
In 3/4 drive.
You named it a DAC, didn't you?
I did name it a DAC. And this is my one, which is kind of old actually. It's actually a different colour yellow because it's a couple of years older than this one, and it's totally thrashed, but it still works amazingly.
Next up is a drill for drilling holes. It works, runs on battery. My favourite bit is that it's got a little light, it's got a magnet on it. There it is, Ryobi drill.
Good.
Is that yours, Martin?
Yeah.
Or is that mine?
No, I think that's your one, because yours isn't as beat up as mine again, because I think it's a bit newer.
Oh.
With 18-volt lithium batteries.
Next up, we've got the angle grinder. So obviously in the series, you would have seen us cutting up the sump with this, basically cutting up everything, and also taking off this and replacing it with a wire wheel so we can smash our way through the paint. Again, runs on the same battery as everything else. Amazing. There it is. And lastly, Martin, this was like the real surprise of the build, and you probably saw it a lot on screen. This is a power ratchet. So this is part of the Ryobi 1 Plus series, of course. You basically can get into very finicky little places and do things up and undo them with these. And once they're tight, then you can give it another wind like that. That was amazing.
Al's really big on these things too, because having done, like, being a mechanic for I think 20+ years, he was saying there's like, don't do it manually if you don't have to. Because you're just thrashing your body, and your body has limitations. So one of his favourite tools is these, because you just go, bah, and it's done. Or you spend 20 seconds. Some people are purists, funnily enough, and don't like ratchety things, but I'm a fan. There's some situations they don't work, but some situations, like when we're putting the bonnet on, we didn't have enough room to ratchet. Stick that in, bonnet's attached. Awesome.
What you can do though with those is you can get it to a certain level, and you can either give it a rat, or if you need to get like a torque wrench on there and go click, 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 click. You probably noticed that all of those tools are Ryobi tools, which we have been using for 10 years. In fact, Marty, the very first episode of Mighty Come was 10 years ago. You were using the Ryobi drill.
Which was brand new at the time. It was a different colour even.
They were the blue and black ones,
We're starting to use those style of batteries, but they were NiCad batteries. Everyone's old enough to remember what they are. And I went halves with my mum, because we were like, I need a drill. And Mum's like, I'll go halves because you got to drill some stuff around my house. So I went, okay, and we went to Bunnings and got a drill, but it was really handy. Still got it.
That's awesome. Use it. And a massive shout out to you guys, because you may have seen recently we needed to get 10 new batteries, and we did a shout out to to Ryobi and just said, hey, if you give us the 10 batteries, we'll pay the equivalent amount to ReachOut, which is the charity that we are ambassadors for, which is mental health for young people. And you guys all like flooded their Facebook page, and they actually came through with the goods, and so we made that donation to ReachOut. Then we went again because we needed some some leaf blowers because we'd blown up our other ones on the dyno. Again, they sent us a bunch of stuff, and you guys flooded their Facebook wall. Ryobi, if someone's listening, can you send us one, please?
Be nice to have a leaf blower that works.
I think they're worth about $100 approximately. We only need the skin, and we will give in return $500 to ReachOut. Turns out that Ryobi are also involved in a bunch of charitable events. They fund Hummingbird House, which is up in Queensland, and they also, Martin, support a bunch of men's sheds, supplying tools and stuff.
Love those. Look up your men's sheds.
There's men's sheds all over Australia. Look them out. They're great. You can kind of meet up and do stuff.
Go make stuff.
So it turns out that you guys were like smashing yourselves on the Ryobi Facebook page and like going, hey, look, Mighty Mods use their stuff. And a couple of the guys from Ryobi Australia came and visited us. And amazingly, because we've been using it for 10 years and because we love it, they are, as of about a few hours ago, actually, are now officially sponsors of Mighty Car Mods. What that means is when companies come to help us and support us, it means that you guys keep getting the show for free on YouTube. There's no paywalls. That is the way it's always going to be. And we're pretty stoked.
Totally. And tools are mad.
Tools are good.
That's kind of, hey guys, we make tools. Do you want to play with some of our tools? Yep.
Yep. So a massive shout out to Ryobi Australia, and of course the other sponsors of Mighty Car Mods, which is Super Cheap Auto, Bridgestone, of course. We have Castrol Edge, there's GFB, there's Haltech. So thank you very much. And now, so if you get the opportunity to support any of those companies, they do support us, so that is amazing. Martin, it's time to move on to the next question, which was...
Is this the big one?
No. Well, it could be the big one. This is the one Benny got the angriest about.
Oh, okay, yeah,
the question was the RB always the choice of engine that you wanted to use in the car? And for me, yes, it was. Benny was all about, like, let's go naturally aspirated. Yeah. There was probably a bit of weird beard purity going on there, which I get, because I've got a weird beard. You've got a weird beard going on there as well.
Yeah, a little bit.
And someone else on Facebook goes, why do you guys like turbo cars? I just think the efficiency of them is cool. I like the noises they make. I like the feeling of them. And I've got a Mini. It's like a VTEC Mini. I kind of get that 9,000 RPM naturally aspirated noise. And I like turbo cars.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely a bit of an era thing going on here. And you've only got to ask someone who, you know, was around 60s cars. And it's like, oh, you got a big, like, 427 cube, big block V8. And then you see that go past when you're a teenager or in your early 20s. You're like, that's awesome, and that's fast. That's kind of what happened for me with turbo cars, because I was driving naturally aspirated Geminis and other like kind of slow cars, if I'm honest. And you know, people started getting 180s and people started getting turbo cars, and I got my first turbo Cordia and was completely hooked. Yeah. Because you just go, I put petrol in the same, I press the accelerator the same, a little boost gauge goes like this, and I go way faster than I do with a naturally aspirated car. Yeah. And V8s were not as accessible at that time for me to get. Even now, like, you know, you got to run one, you got to put fuel in it. There's efficiencies that come into it. We don't need to spend a whole episode talking about it, but definitely for me, turbo engines are where it's at.
Martin, let's have a quick talk about efficiency. One of the questions that we had was, the car was set up for E85, yet when we're on the dyno, we spoke about hitting the limitations of the fuel pump for E85. This is the funny thing with E85 versus 98. So we ended up with, we haven't showed you this figure yet. You'll be seeing this little clip shortly. But we ended up with around 300 and something kilowatts on 98. Yep. If we'd gone on ethanol, we would have made around the same power, but we would have used more fuel because we would have hit the limitation of the pump. So the question was, is that why didn't we increase the pump capacity to make the car capable of running E85 from the very beginning?
Well, that fuel system is quite capable, and also, as you saw, very simple to upgrade. There's definitely this line that you get to. Now, we've hit it with Supergrams and we've hit it with the double unicorn. If you haven't seen them, we'll put a little thing to go have a look. Power is often a question of how much fuel you can stuff into the engine. If the engine has the efficiency to make it and the durability to not detonate and explode, often it's a limit of how much air and fuel you can stuff in it. Now, if you want to stuff a lot of fuel in it, those fuel pumps where it's called like a DW300 or a Walbro 450, that's usually like it's litres per minute, but often there'll be a number that cars just seem to hit with those fuel pumps. They're not always advertised because sometimes it's lower than people expect. Often it's higher than you expect. Yep. But Tuning Fork, Scotty, who's been doing this for a long time, the first question he asks when you bring him a car and you say, I want to run it on 98, he goes, what fuel pump is in it? Every single time. And he told us, he said, with an RB26, you'll make 300 and whatever it was, 30 kilowatts on 98 at this particular boost pressure every time if it's that particular fuel pump. And he said, oh, there's a new fuel pump by Walbro, whoever it is, that will make 380. And then as the technology gets better and they can stuff more fuel through and keep the fuel pressure up, then obviously that number's increasing. Now, Supergramps made a maximum of 280 kilowatts on ethanol. On 98, it made barely 200 because the engine was limited by detonation. These RB26s are built for boost from the factory. We know that you can turn the boost up well past 20 pounds and they'll just take it for a time. Ethanol has 35% less energy in it, so you generally have to run 35% more fuel. Someone's going to stop me on that percentage thing, but you get the idea. So you immediately got to add 35% more fuel, right? And at that, you can run more boost, which means less detonation, which means you can make more power. But you also have to have the fuel system to support it. Yep. So if we wanted to run ethanol, we could have put it in, and we would have also put the fuel in it. We could have put some more boost through it. It wouldn't have pinged. It probably would have made more power. Yep. And we go, great, we made 360 kilowatts, but the fuel system's now at really high duty cycle, and you're sort of pushing your luck. If you put 2 of those fuel systems in, or 2 external pumps and a swirl pot, and suddenly you've got a boot full of rubbish, yes, you could probably make more power until the engine is your weak point. But for now, that fuel system is the limitation.
And that said as well, I think that it's probably
worth saying, to finish that point, 50 kilowatts more than Supergramps though.
It's
like you're talking, like potentially
exceptional.
for Scotty's number of 330, 340, that's 50 kilowatts more.
Yeah. The thing that's important though is that the car was built as a street car, as a nice to drive street car that you could take to the track sometimes. I think you could load lots of power into it and you could make a number that looks really good on the internet, but maybe is not as nice to drive. And maybe that's actually the good segue to talk about the power run that we did, where we did actually make more power than what was shown in the video. So let's cut to that now, and then we'll have a quick chat about that.
Is that clutch?
So no, that was me on the boost controller.
Okay.
So that's all right.
It's not a pretty one. That is the power that it made. It just doesn't look good.
Was that essentially a clutch kick?
No, that's me trying to roll the boost over to try and get less at that point.
Okay.
And I just left it. I just didn't pull enough out of it.
Right.
So we'll get
at its peak, it did make that power.
Well, you said 330, didn't you? Like 320, 330?
320, 330s kind of.
Like the guy who tunes these things knows what it's going to do. It's interesting.
Crazy.
So as you can see from that clip, there is actually a higher figure. So if you're on a forum and you needed to do your signature, that's the number that you would put in there to show everybody that your car is making loads of power. But the point is that if you look at the curve of it, that was just Scotty playing around with boost, experimenting with different things. That's the number that ends up on the car sales ad when you sell the car. Which is never going to be for sale, except the actual curve didn't look very nice, so what we had to do was smooth that out. So that is why peak figures, you got to remember as well, the car is only making that power when it's like right on the raggedy edge, and with a car that you want to drive every day, take on your Tinder dates or do whatever you do, you want it to actually be nice down low.
We had a really interesting
your date and the car. See?
Oh wow. We had a really interesting conversation with Scotty. If you're interested in this kind of stuff to do with power curves, and again I mentioned Supergramps earlier, makes a lower peak power figure. If you go back and look at the video of it on the dyno, you'll see that the power curve sort of comes up and stays up. Yeah. Because you've got a big engine, lots of air, lots of fuel. It gets on boost real quick and it stays there because you can't push it further because you'll either explode your engine or run out of fuel, like I mentioned earlier. You'll notice the power band of this RB is like a lot of RB26 ones, and it comes up, the turbo spools up and away it goes, and it builds and builds and builds. Now, if you put a bigger turbo on it, you're going to have this, it's going to take ages to spool up and you won't be at full boost till like over 5,000 RPM. We're in, I think, the high fours before we're making full boost. But that doesn't mean that it's not making nice, good linear power. And we spoke about that a bit also, going, you know what? I don't know if I want to have 330 kilowatts at the wheels at 3,000 RPM in that car.
Exactly.
Because you'll hit 3,000, you'll be sideways. Whereas this, we think, will be quite a nice thing.
But I mean, it still hasn't been driven properly yet, so we'll have to see. We've also got to sort out the wheels and rubber, which was another question of people saying, do you need to cut stuff? Do you need to do different things like that? We don't actually know yet, and that'll all be part of the engineering process and getting wheels that fit. We're not allowed to run spacers because that's illegal in New South Wales for engineering, and we don't know if we're going to have to cut guards and stuff. We don't want to do that. Speaking of engineering, we'll only touch on this quickly. I saw some people said, what is engineering? Because we talk about it all the time. So there's the local laws. We often say check with your local laws because everywhere's different. You go to a different state in Australia and it's like, well, you can have that size wheel and this size wheel. And basically a bunch of dudes, engineers, car people and government sit around a table and go, cool, how do we stop crazy cars getting out there that are unsafe? That's generally what they're going for. So unlike California.
Yeah, well, but then they got crazy emissions rules.
They do.
So you can have it slammed, but you can't make any pollution. Anyway, so we obviously want to comply with that so that we can drive it, and if you get pulled over, yeah, my car's legal, all that sort of thing.
And you actually have to do that. Otherwise you can't. So the process is an engineer, as in engineering means an engineer actually checks certain aspects of the car. Those aspects are different depending on what era the car is from and what the requirements are. From there, it needs what's called a blue slip in New South Wales, which goes to a workshop. They go over a bunch of stuff, check lights, check VINs, all those kinds of things. Then you can get your insurance, your CTP, which is compulsory insurance, and your other insurances, and then you can get it registered, and then you can pick up your number plates, and then you can drive around on the road.
Like you would a Yaris.
It's quite a detailed process. Just jumping back a little bit for people asking about, you know, are we going to have to hack the guards? One of the questions was, other than what we showed on screen, what did we have to hack or bodge up that we didn't show anybody? And the answer is nothing.
Intercooler pipe, I suppose.
Yeah,
and needed some massaging of the hole that was already there.
Yeah,
the 2 ears off
and we did show that. And then in the tunnel where the gearbox is, they had to be moved. So that brings us to the next question, which is what is happening with all of the gear from the car, all of this stuff. We're just going to store it. At this stage. A few people have said that they want to buy it, but the point is the idea of this was always to be able to turn it to stock. I don't know if I would ever want to be honest, because I think it is actually a better car now. It's one of those things that for what the car was in its time, for its era, was great. It is better now. It's going to drive better. It's going to stop better. It's going to be more efficient, all those different things. But at this stage, we're going to store that stuff. And the other question was, where is the engine and the clutch and all those things? They're in Japan. There is the possibility of bringing them in at some stage. We couldn't bring them in a timely, cost-efficient manner for this particular build, which was unfortunate because we bought the car as a complete car. We wanted to bring it back, register it, drive it around for a while, and then kind of talk about doing the mods. We had this RB here already, which was going to be possibly for another project. And then that came in with no engine, and that's kind of the way that that worked out.
Just on that last point, there's one other thing as well that we've been speaking about a fair bit, and I know a lot of other people I've seen in forums and in comment sections and all that kind of stuff, talking about matching numbers cars. You should have a matching numbers car.
Yep.
And I completely understand the attraction to that, and some people are really into it, collectors, particularly like matching numbers, matching numbers. It's the same car as when it rolled off the showroom floor. Now, there's also the other side of people that say, I don't care, I just want to modify it to the extreme, and then people end up with like full-on race cars and these crazy things.
And this is not specific, by the way, to car culture.
No,
otherwise,
that's true.
I mean, we're audio engineers and musicians. People want matched microphone pairs that came off the production line at the same time. They want serial numbers that are one number apart because when they're recording, they make sure that the anything that's audible, aberrations and stuff is going to be equivalent with the two of them. Often then they have no idea what they're doing and they're like sticking one microphone here and one over there, and there's weird phase issues anyway. But they like the idea that it's the same, and I get that.
And then other people will go on eBay and buy like a hot rod kit for their they're actually called that, for their microphones, and go and put new capacitors and stuff in it and go, oh, I fixed it, it's better. So you're exactly right. This exists everywhere. The other thing that I saw spoken about that I thought was really interesting was someone said, if you were given a bog stock 1975 Fairlady in 1985, so 10 years after, when no one cared about anymore, because right now no one cares about a 2008 Corolla, let's be honest, right? If you put them side by side, and in 1985, say we had the technology and this particular Fairlady could show up next to it, and you said, cool, drive them back to back. I almost guarantee that someone from that era would go, that's amazing, that's an evolution of that particular car, and they don't really care about matching numbers 10 years later. 40 years later, it's a different story. Collectability comes into it. Collectability is not that important, I don't think, for us, for this particular car.
Because we're young and stupid.
I guess so.
Can we say that?
You know what,
we're in our 30s, can we be young and stupid
or
still?
20 years we'll go, I can't believe we did that, and maybe we will, but the adventure of actually doing it was something we really wanted to experience and do, and did, and the car, so far, from what we've managed to do with it so far, is really, really rewarding. And the technology that's in it, like we are talking about a 40-year upgrade in technology, maybe only 20 years for the engine, but some of those rear end bits and all the, the CAD design that goes with that kind of stuff is pretty good. One of the things I will say about that, and one of the comments that we get a little bit, is sometimes we put a video out there, and we did get it as a couple of questions with this, and someone will say, someone did that before. Now, there's this kind of concept that if somebody's done something before, then you don't need to do it. You don't need to do it yourself. Now, I like eating because then you can be alive, and people have done that before, and I think sometimes the car community is so in its own pants, sniffing its own butt, that it can't actually see what's out there in the world. Because if you look at if you look at some of the comments, well, there's a wall. If you look at some of the comments, next time you're watching a car video, get those comments and imagine that you were saying that to someone's mum, right? Like, imagine you went to their house and she goes, I've made you an apple pie. Someone's done that before. Oh, okay. They probably have. Because I didn't invent the apple pie, but would you like a piece?
oh, I guess so. Oh, that's delicious. So I think sometimes people have an idea that just because something's been done before, it shouldn't be done. Now, I'm all about discovering and inventing stuff, and that's the way that the world evolves and technology advances and all those things. But for young people that are out there, or people that are not as experienced, and I put myself in those categories as well, I don't want to feel like I can't do something just because I look on the internet and someone else has already done it before, because ultimately it's about your experience, not the experience of someone else who did it. If you really want to climb Mount Kilimanjaro, don't listen to someone else who goes, oh, I actually already climbed there, the view's not that good. Because it's not about what they're doing, it's about what you're doing and the process of what you'll learn. And the experiences that you'll have with your mates and your journey and all that stuff is important to you, and no one else will understand that, because ultimately you end up driving the car, no one else. People on the internet want lots of power and they want drama because that's what makes the world exciting, but ultimately you're the one that's driving your car, and do you want to drive something that the internet thinks is cool, or do you want to drive in something and go, hey, this actually truly feels exciting because I was involved in making this. So don't get too tied up with whether things have been done before or not, because breathing and eating, they've all been done. Like, they've been done before. And even your language that you speak, you didn't invent that. Someone taught you that. You're just an analog copy that's sprouting out these weird vocal spouts through your mouth meat, and they make noise that other people understand. But you didn't invent it. It's not your language, it's someone else's. Anyway, Martin, I think we're near the
That
end.
got super philosophical,
Sorry
but
about that.
I know I completely agree with all of it.
Oh, thank you.
Just do it. Just do it and experience it, because you're right. You can experience a certain amount by watching other people do it, and there's no shortage of stuff to watch. Let's be honest, like there's heaps. Yeah. But you should have a go. It's always been about having a go yourself anyway.
Yeah.
I know it's like slightly less DIY. This, I guess, people said that too. Oh, it's not really DIY. Well, yeah, and yes and no.
Yeah.
Still the do it yourself. I'm still myself, and we're still doing it. You know, people saying, do this car, do a V8, do an Australian one, do an American one, do a Korean one, do an Indian one. Like, there's all the time. And then I wrote up a little whiteboard of all like the projects and stuff that I want to do.
40 projects on there.
Yeah, so I wrote it up and went, oh, I've got to do this project and this project. And I went, right, so if you took away 90% of that whiteboard, that's what most people would do in a year.
Yeah.
And that'd be a great amount, because you'd be like, cool, I'm going to do this project in my car. Then I'm going to have 8 weeks off and go to the snow and watch some TV and watch some other YouTube stuff. There's like 10 times that of stuff to do. And I'm really keen to do it, but how many hours are there in a day? Someone asked, and the question that literally someone asked was, do you ever sleep? Yeah. And the answer is, I try to, otherwise you turn into a zombie.
I like to sleep a bit, but you know, a lot of the stuff that we're obviously filming a lot here, we're also working freelance, doing our music and audio stuff. We opened our restaurant recently with a couple of mates, Wishbone, which is in Enmore in Sydney, and that's open 7 days a week if you want some delicious fried chicken.
And same as since the beginning, it's 2 of us and a couple of mates that help us out.
Which is pretty good. And a bunch of Mighty Mods fans that work in the kitchen and on the floor. Mate. But people say, like, what do you like doing? The reality is most of my life is not spent on the intervals. It's spent out in the real world.
And I don't think you're going to see much vlogging of me. I'm not really into that thing of like, oh, my entire life on the internet vlogged out. Like, I just want to come and hang out and watch cars and do car stuff with you guys and you.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a little shed at home and I work in there. You might have seen some of the videos on MCM TV too of like how to make a bench and stuff, which funnily enough, people are like, that's a Ryobi sponsored video, which it isn't and wasn't, except because I had all of that stuff. People are like, that's all right, but I was just using it because it's good.
It's good. I got a little tin shed in my backyard as well. I'm going to put a hoist in it. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, right.
Do some fun car stuff.
We've got some fun projects coming up, and there's some new cars coming back from the dead.
Always.
Isn't there, Martin?
You're going to see the mirror very soon, which is exciting. A lot of people have been asking about the mirror. You're going to see it again. Kicking it off.
And you're going to see another car that we haven't worked on for a little bit in the coming days, and then another one a little bit after that, and then another one a little bit. It's back from the dead 2018, basically, which is pretty exciting. Thank you if you made it this far down the video. Thank you very much for Ryobi, of course, for coming on board officially as sponsors of Mighty Car Mods. Thank you for everybody who watched our S30 build. And Marty and I are regularly working down at Wishbone, which is our restaurant. It's at 125 Enmore Road in Enmore, and we're waiters there sometimes.
Sometimes.
And we're eating there sometimes. We're not there all the time, but we are there sometimes.
And if you made it this far through the video and you've watched every video for the last 10.5 years, then thank you. We just made it to 10.5 years.
Did we?
10.5 years.
Is 10.5 years a thing?
So thank you for all your time and watching and all your supportive comments. Really appreciate them. I know there can be a lot of like crankiness out there. I really appreciate the positive comments because it really helps.
I would have never thought that we'd be making videos for like 10 years.
Probably
which
because
makes me think that because in 20 years we'll still be making them, right?
Probably.
We'll be 40 something.
And I think if I was vlogging about my cat run that I just made or what I had for breakfast, I think I'd run out of interest in all that very quickly. But this is always exciting. There's a whole whiteboard of cars there.
And you know what? I'm going to finish with the very last thing, which is some people kind of obviously go, oh, Mighty Car Mods has evolved over the years or it's changed a little bit. It just has to. We are always trying to do the best thing that we can with the resources that we have. Being back on the driveway in the rain, you can't make stuff. You couldn't have spent 3 months with an S30 sitting out there because someone would have stolen it after the first week.
Probably.
Just like someone came and stole our other car and our motorbike. So thanks heaps for that. But let's finish on a high note. Everyone evolves. There's an article about that down there. I'm going to put it down there. Have a little thing in there of, you know, things are changing. But there it is. Thank you for watching Mighty Car Mods. You can follow us on the Faceballs, of course. And that's about it, Martin.
And the
Thank
Instaballs. And the Instaballs too.
And thank you, Martin. Thanks,
man.
Benny, and Tuning Fork, and Alan,
Everyone, and all our mates who
and Dave,
hang out with us and do
and the people that helped out with
fun
this
car shenanigans and put up with the silliness.
There it is. All right, chocolate peanuts, Martin.
Chocolate coated peanuts,
get
man.
'em.
Not actual like peanuts made of chocolate, like the
Oh,
peanut
you mean a metaphor?
with
Chocolate
it. Yeah, I
nuggets.
want to put like the nuts in my face.
Yeah, awesome, man.